Good morning, students. Welcome back to our history class. Today we are going to the next chapter, India after independence. What happened after India gained independence from British? Can you say? British finally gave in and announced India's independence and also its partition into two countries, India and Pakistan. A new and divided nation. When India became independent in August 1947, it faced a series of very great challenges. As a result of partition, 8 million refugees had come into the country from what was now Pakistan. 8 million refugees. Refugees means a person who has been forced to leave their countries in order to escape war. Abhayarthigal. Okay, had come into the country from what was now Pakistan. Okay, these people had to be found homes and jobs. Then there was the problem of the princely states, almost 500 of them, each ruled by a Maharaja or a Nawab, each of whom had to be persuaded to join the new nation. The problems of the refugees and of the princely states had to be addressed immediately. In the longer term, the new nation had to adopt a political system that would best serve the hopes and expectations of its population. That means when British rule came to an end in 1947, okay, then India became independent in August 1947. So, the subcontinent was partitioned along religious lines into two separate countries, India with a majority of Hindus and Pakistan with a majority of Muslims. Okay, see, on 30 January 1948, Mahatma Gandhi was assassinated by a fanatic Nathuram Vinayak Godse because he disagreed with Gandhiji's convictions that Hindus and Muslims should live together in harmony. That evening, a stunned nation heard Jawaharlal Nehru's moving statement over All India Radio. Friends and comrades, the light has gone out of our lives and there is darkness everywhere. Okay, our beloved leader who? Gandhiji was the father of nation. Okay, India's population in 1947 was large, almost 345 million. Okay, it was also divided. There were divisions between high castes and low castes, between the majority Hindu community and Indians who practiced other faiths. Okay, the citizens of this vast land spoke many different languages, many different kinds of dress, ate different kinds of food, and practiced different professions. Understand? How could they be made to live together in one nation state? To the problem of unity was added the problem of development. At independence, the vast majority of Indians lived in the villages. Farmers and peasants depended on the monsoon for their survival. So did the non-farm sector of the rural economy. For if the crops failed, barbers, carpenters, weavers and other service groups would not get paid for their services either. In the cities, factory workers lived in crowded slums with little access to education or health care. Okay, factory workers lived in crowded slum area, okay, with little access to education or health care. Clearly, the new nation had to lift its masses out of poverty by increasing the productivity of agriculture and by promoting new job creating industries. Unity and development had to go hand in hand. If the divisions between different sections of India were not healed, they could result in violent and costly conflicts, high caste fighting with the low caste. Okay, high caste fighting with the low caste, Hindus with the Muslims, and so on. At the same time, if the fruits of economy, development did not reach the broad masses of the population. It could create fresh divisions. For example, between the rich and the poor, between cities and the countryside, between regions of India that were prosperous and regions that lagged behind. A constitution is written between December 1946 and November 1949. Some 300 Indians had a series of meetings on the country's political future. The meetings of this Constituent Assembly. What is Constituent Assembly? Constituent Assembly is a body assembled for the revising a constitution. How member of a Constituent Assembly may be elected by popular vote. Okay. The meetings of this Constituent Assembly were held in New Delhi, but the participants came from all over India and from different political parties. Understand? These discussions resulted in the framing of the Indian Constitution when on 26 January 1950. Okay, 26 January 1950, framing of the Indian Constitution. One feature of the Constitution was its adoption of the universal adult franchise. Okay, listen. Universal adult franchise, that means the right of all adults to cast votes in their nation. Right to vote. Okay. All Indians above the age of 21 would be allowed to vote in state and national elections. This was a revolutionary step, for never before had Indians been allowed to choose their own leaders. Universal adult franchise. In other countries such as the United Kingdom and the United States, this right had been granted in stages. Firstly, then only men of property had the vote. Then men who were educated were also added on. First, only men of property had the vote. Then men who were educated were also added on. Working class men got the vote only after a long struggle. Finally, after a bitter struggle of their own, American and British women were granted the vote. On the other hand, soon after independence, India chose to grant this right to all its citizens regardless of gender, class or education. The second feature of the Constitution was that it guaranteed equality before the law to all citizens regardless of their caste or religious affiliation. What was the first feature? Adoption of universal adult franchise. Okay. So, there were some Indians who wished that the political system of the new nation be based on Hindu ideals and that India itself be run as a Hindu state. They pointed to the example of Pakistan, a country created explicitly to protect and further the interests of a particular religious community, the Muslims. Okay. However, the Indian Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru, first Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru, was of the opinion that India could not and must not become a Hindu Pakistan. Please note that. Then Indian Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru was of the opinion. What was the opinion of Jawaharlal Nehru? India could not and must not become a Hindu Pakistan. Besides Muslims, India also had large populations of Sikhs and Christians, as well as many Parsis and Jains. Under the new constitution, they would have the same rights as Hindus, the same opportunities when it came to seeking jobs in government or this private sector, the same rights before the law. Okay, listen. Then same rights as Hindus, same opportunities and same rights before the law. Okay, listen. What was the third feature of the constitution? A third feature of the constitution was that it offered special privileges for the poorest and most disadvantaged Indians. The practice of untouchability, described as a slur and a blot on the fair name of India, was abolished. Hindu temples previously open to only the higher castes were thrown open to all, including the former untouchables. After a long debate, the Constituent Assembly recommended that a certain percentage of seats in legislatures as well as jobs in government be reserved for members of the lowest caste. It had been argued by some that untouchable, or as they were now known, Harijan candidates did not have good enough grades to get into prestigious Indian administrative service. That means untouchability was described as a slur and a blot on the fair name of India. After the constitution was adopted, it was also abolished. Okay, the Hindu temples were thrown open to all, including the former untouchables. Okay, then open for only the higher castes were open for untouchables as well. So, a Constituent Assembly also recommended some seats for members of the lowest castes. Member of the Constituent Assembly, H.J. Gandekar, argued it was the upper caste who were responsible for the Aryans being unfit today, addressing his more privileged colleagues. That means H.J. Gandekar was a member of Constituent Assembly. Okay, he was an active member of Constituent Assembly for the uplift of the scheduled tribal or Harijans. Okay. Gandekar said, "We were suppressed for thousands of years. You engaged us in your service to serve your own ends, and suppressed us to such an extent that neither our minds nor our bodies, and nor even our hearts work, nor are we able to march forward." Okay, these words of Gandekar. Okay, for what? For uplift of lower caste people. Okay, so along with the former untouchables, the Adivasis or scheduled tribes were also granted reservation in seats and jobs. Okay, in the Indian Administrative Service, Indian Constituent Assembly, some seats granted for whom? Then Adivasis or scheduled tribes. Okay, then reservation in seats and jobs. Okay, like the scheduled caste, these Indians too had been deprived and discriminated against. The tribals had been deprived of modern health care and education, while their lands and forests had been taken away by more powerful outsiders. Result, the new privileges granted them by the constitution. Okay, then by the constitution were meant to make amends for this. Okay, the Constituent Assembly spent many days discussing the powers of the central government versus those of the state governments. Okay, against central government and state government. Understand? Some members thought that the center's interests should be foremost. Only a strong center, it was argued, would be in a position to think and plan for the well-being of the country as a whole. Okay, please note that would be in a position to think and plan for the well-being of the country as a whole. Okay. Other members felt that the provinces should have greater autonomy and freedom. Okay. A member from Mysore feared that under the present system, democracy is centered in Delhi and it is not allowed to work in the same sense and spirit in the rest of the country. Democracy. Okay, what is democracy? Democracy is a form of government that allows people to choose their rulers. In a democracy, only leaders elected by people have freedom to express view, freedom to organize, and freedom to protest. Okay. So, Abraham Lincoln says that democracy is the government of the people, by the people, and for the people. Please note that. Then, democracy is the government of the people, by the people, and for the people. A member from Madras insisted that the initial responsibility for the well-being of the people of the provinces should rest with the provincial governments. Okay. The constitution mentioned 3 lists of subjects: a union list, state list, and concurrent list. The union list mentioned in the constitution, such as taxes, defense, and foreign affairs, which would be the exclusive responsibility of the center. Okay. The state list mentioned in the constitution, such as education and health, which would be taken care of principally by the states. Okay. Then a concurrent list mentioned in the constitution, such as forests and agriculture, in which the center and the states would have joint responsibility. Okay, these are the debates in the Constituent Assembly. Okay, listen. Another major debate in the Constituent Assembly concerned language. Language. Okay, listen. Many members believed that the English language should leave India with the British rulers. Okay, its place, they argued, should be taken by Hindi. However, those who did not speak Hindi were of a different opinion. Speaking in the assembly, T.T. Krishnamajari conveyed a warning on behalf of people of the South. Okay, listen. T.T. Krishnamajari conveyed a warning on behalf of people of the South. Okay, some of whom threatened to separate from India if Hindi was imposed on them. Okay. Finally, Hindi is the official language of India. Okay, English would be used in the courts, the services and the communications between one state and another states. Okay, Indians contributed to the forming of the constitution. Okay, but perhaps the most important role was played by Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. Okay, B.R. Ambedkar was chairman of the drafting committee, and under whose supervision the document was finalized. Okay, in his final speech to the Constituent Assembly, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar pointed out that political democracy had to be accompanied by economic and social democracy. Okay, listen. Then giving the right to vote would not automatically lead to the removal of other inequalities, such as between rich and poor or between upper caste and lower caste. Understand? With the new constitution, he said India was going to enter into a life of contradictions. See, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, a lawyer and economist. Okay, he is best known as a reserved leader of the Dalits and the father of the Indian Constitution. In politics, we will have equality, and in social and economic life, we will have inequality. Okay, in politics, we will be recognized the principle of one man, one vote, and one value. In our social and economic life, we shall, by reason of our social and economic structure, continue to deny the principle of one man, one value. One man, one value. Please note that. That means B.R. Ambedkar pointed out political democracy cannot last unless there lies at the base of social democracy. What does social democracy means? Can you say? It means way of life which recognize liberty, equality and fraternity as the principle of life. Okay, please note that liberty, equality and fraternity as the principles of life. Okay, next topics we will discuss in the next class. You must read the lesson carefully. Thank you.